As we head into 2022, it's almost resolution season. So if you're like me, you're thinking about how much money should I be investing in 2022? What can I reasonably afford to do? What type of investments should I make? And one of the most common questions from new investors or people who are just looking to grow their investments or their rental portfolio is, how much money can I reasonably and responsibly invest into real estate in 2022? So that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. I'm going to walk you through the super simple calculations that you can do on your own to figure out how much money you can invest. What's going on, everyone? I'm Dave Meyer with BiggerPockets, and today we are going to help you figure out how to achieve your goals in 2022 by figuring out how much money you have right now that you can put into an investment. That is one of the first and most important steps in getting either your first or your next real estate investment. Before we jump into the calculations, please make sure to give us a thumbs up. We really appreciate it. It helps us with the YouTube algorithm and helps us make more videos just like this. All right, let's jump into this. How do you calculate what I call your investable assets? That's how much money can you invest into any sort of investment. We're talking about real estate here today, but really this is going to work for any sort of investment. Okay, so we're going to turn to my handy virtual whiteboard and talk about how much you can invest. And this is a three-step process. The first is calculating your liquid assets. The second is how much cash reserves do you need in case of an emergency? And then the last is your investable assets, which is super easy once you have steps 1 and 2. So step 1 is your liquid assets. And so a liquid asset is anything that can be easily converted to cash. And there are different ways to define this, but the way I define it is anything that in 1 or 2 weeks, roughly, you can turn into cash. So cash is one of them. Anything you have in a savings or a checking account, anything like a stock or a bond that can easily be sold. And if you want to include jewelry or a car or something, you can. I think for the purposes of this example, I'm going to use stocks, bonds, and cash just for ease of use. But if you have other things that you could easily convert into cash, cryptocurrency, for example, is another thing you can do. But I'm going to just keep this simple. So let's start with cash. That is the most liquid of all assets. And let's say that we have $20,000 in our savings account. We're going to say 20 grand. Stock, let's say that's 15,000. And then bonds, let's say that's, I don't know, another 15,000. That gives us a nice round number of 50,000. I'm just doing that honestly because it's easier for me to do the math in my head when we have a nice round number like 50,000. This could be any number, but let's just say our liquid assets are $50,000. So that should be pretty easy for you to calculate. Next, like we said, if we go back here, so we've done liquid assets, figure that out, what you got. And then the second is cash reserves. So this is important. While this seems like all the money you can invest, and you could if you wanted to, it's not really responsible. You want to keep some money in case your investments go poorly, you lose your job, whatever it is. So most experts, I'm going to move over here and just do cash reserves. Most experts think that you should keep at least 3 months of cash reserves. If you have kids or your job is really volatile or you're just a less risk tolerant person, all of which are fine, you might want to keep more, maybe 6 months. If you're really cautious, 9 months. That's totally up to you. But the formula here is you take your monthly spend and you multiply it by months of reserve. So the next step here is figure out what your monthly spend is, right? So monthly spend, if you don't have a budget already, which hopefully you do, but if you don't, that's okay. You just need to figure out what your monthly spend is. So let's just say your rent, again, I'm going to make all these numbers up right here, is $1,000 a month. Let's say your car is $500 a month. Food, another $500 a month. I don't know. I'm going to just say other, I don't know. What am I at? 2,000. I'm going to say other is 500. Again, this is a super simple budget. I'm just trying to show you guys how to calculate this. So that comes out to a monthly spend of $2,500, right? So now let's say that we are relatively conservative, and rather than 3 months of reserve, we want 6 months of reserve. Maybe we have kids, or our job is volatile, or a sales job and things go up and down. That's up to you. So let's say that we want to keep 6 months of reserve. So remember, our equation here is monthly spend times months of reserve. So then we have 2,500 times 6, which equals 15,000. Okay. So now we know our cash reserves. Our cash reserves equals $15,000. Okay. So now we know, again, liquid assets, 50,000, right? And then our cash reserves are 15,000. And then for investable assets, it's super easy. All we got to do is subtract that. So our investable assets equals liquid assets minus cash reserves. So that's 50,000 minus 15,000. Now we can invest responsibly $35,000 in whatever you want. And that's it. All you got to do is figure out how much money you have in general that is investable, that you can easily turn into cash. That's step one, liquid assets. Step two, how much money do you need to keep back to be safe, to make sure that you are not investing irresponsibly and putting too much money into an illiquid asset, something that you can't sell quickly, like a rental property, that you need that money to survive. So that's your cash reserves. Again, that is somewhat subjective. You have to decide for yourself what level of risk, minimum 3 months of reserve. If you have kids, volatile job, think a little bit more. And so that has gotten us to 15,000. And then all we did was subtract our cash reserves from our liquid assets, and we have $35,000. So $35,000, I mean, again, I totally made these numbers up, but that is a good amount of money to invest in real estate right now. If you put 10% down on a house hack, for example, you could purchase a house that is worth $350,000. If you want to put less down, you could buy something even more expensive. Or if you want to put the conventional 20% down, you could afford something that is a little bit less expensive. So that's it. That's how you calculate your investable assets for 2022. So if you have a goal to buy your first rental property or your next rental property or investment in 2022, this would be a great first step to help you reach that resolution. Go ahead and calculate your investable assets. All right, that's it for me. I'm Dave Meyer with BiggerPockets. If you have any thoughts on this video or ideas for new videos, you can always hit me up at The Data Deli on Instagram. I'll see you all in the new year.